think if you go in with this idea that like she is looking for herself and looking to find her place in the world, I think you see it's easier to have a little bit of more compassion for that prickliness. And I recently read another book called Leaving the Station, where the main character can come off as a bit prickly. And I was thinking about this quite a bit. And I was like, this is really interesting because now I'm seeing it from the other side, where I absolutely have compassion for her anxiety and the challenges that she's going through. And also, she seems really rude sometimes.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I'm so glad to have everybody back. And we have a great new author on the show as well, who's here to talk about her journey and all of the great things she's up to. I'm on her website right now, checking it out. It's awesome. Got to go there. We'll have links for you as well. Luna's here with us, and I'm excited to see where our conversation goes. This is going to be really fun. Luna, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent, Luna. Tell everybody where in this big world you are. Can you kind of give us a rough idea? I'd love to know.
Yeah, I live in Mexico City right now. So ooh. I left the U.S. during the pandemic, which was an interesting experience. And we decided to be in Mexico City for a little while, and we've ended up making this our home. We really love it here.
Do you have family and ties to that part of the world, or is this brand new for you guys?
No, we had visited maybe like 2 or 3 years before the pandemic and really loved the city and loved how vibrant it is and how much art and museums and, you know, the food's amazing and there's lots of parks and things like that. And I just remember this one time we were walking down this like really beautiful avenue and I was like, I could live here. I could live here. And then during the pandemic, you know, everything shifted so much. And we were like, okay, we've been talking about moving abroad and having an experience abroad with our kids for, you know, the entire time we've been together as a couple. And if we're not going to do it now, when everything around us is kind of falling apart, like when would we do it? So we sold like 95% of our belongings, put a tiny bit of stuff in storage, sold our house, and moved to Mexico City. And like I said, we didn't know whether we would stay, but we've really found community here and our kids love it. And so we did not have any ties here, but we do now.
Nice. Beautiful. And the kids adjusted well to the big move? That's a big change.
It's a huge change. And they, you know, there have definitely been some rough spots, but in general, I think they're really happy here. And it just kind of took a little while to find their community. So I've found mine, but like what is theirs? And Mexico City is a really international city. So like people come and go a lot. So my youngest has had several friends who've moved out of the city and that's really hard. So it's taken some adjustments like each time to try and kind of find new folks to hang out with. But generally they're happy and they've been really good sports about all of it.
Beautiful. What's one thing you miss about where you guys came from though, that you're like, I miss that part?
Yeah, we were in Tacoma, Washington, which is incredibly beautiful and on the water. So I miss that a lot. I miss the mountains. There are mountains outside of Mexico City, but you know, I miss Mount Tacoma, like driving by it and just seeing this like beautiful volcanic, you know, like behemoth, like, you know, a couple miles from you. Like that was always really cool. And we used to get to see orcas and whales and seals and otters and things like that. So like I really miss the nature part of it. And it's funny because we left during the pandemic. There's not like a whole lot of like businesses that I miss because like most things were closed or I hadn't been there in a really long time or like they had literally closed down. And so there was a little bit like the Band-Aid was a little easier to rip off on some of like the things that you would expect to really miss, like maybe your favorite coffee shop or something like that, because I hadn't been in a coffee shop in like a year and a half by the time we left. So mostly I think I really miss the nature and just being able to drive like 15 minutes and be at the beach. I will never not miss that.
Yeah. Well, it's a big change for you guys. That's like you're right. If you don't do it now, when would you ever do it? Right. So take advantage of it when you can. You know, the kids are only going to get older and it's going to get harder to make that change down the future as well. If you waited 10 years from now, but it'd be really hard to make that change. Right.
Yeah, we've talked about, you know, the possibility of moving somewhere else. And my kids are like, no, we don't want to start over again. We don't want to start with a new language again. And so I'm like, that kind of makes sense at this point.
Excellent. Well, thank you for making time for us. I love this. We have authors, Luna, that listen to the show. They are relatively new to writing, and they would love to be where you are. You're way further down the path than they are. And I always like to get wisdom from somebody who's been doing this for a while to help somebody new. I really want to reach and back and help that next person to get to this spot where you are, so that we could have them on the show, but also to celebrate with them that they've been able to write and share their story. If you were able to listen to a podcast before you started writing, an author podcast, what kind of things do you think would have been helpful for you to hear when you were first starting out, that maybe we can talk to them and share with them today?
I think I have kind of two different sets of advice. If you're literally just starting with writing, my advice is to try a lot of different things. Try writing in your pajamas, in your bed, before you go to sleep. Try writing first thing when you wake up with a cup of coffee. Try writing outside of your house. There are like these rules that we are sort of supposed to follow as writers. And you get up every morning before everyone else and you write for 45 minutes and you write anything, no matter if it's garbage. And literally none of these things worked for me. Like, I would never have written a book if I had had to actually follow these rules. So for me, I learned sort of through trial and error that, and also knowing a little bit myself as a business owner for a really long time, that I do my best work when I'm out of my house with my headphones on at a quiet coffee shop, like drinking an Americano, and I can be so incredibly productive. But I also don't like writing for the sake of writing. Like, if I'm not in the mood to write and I don't feel like that can come through me, I just don't write that day. And that's like anathema to some writers. They're like, no, you have to write every day. And I'm like, I know enough about myself and my creativity that it ebbs and flows, and that you have these sort of, sometimes you have these fallow periods where maybe you can't write for a little bit, or you could write, but you don't want to, or you just don't feel inspired, or you don't feel like you can articulate what you're feeling. And so I just give myself a lot of space and patience, where it's like, oh, I don't want to write today, I'm going to do some administrative work, or I don't want to write today, I'm going to go to the park with my kids. Like, I think that when we put so much pressure on ourselves to like get your numbers and get your like words written, that can be a little bit of a hampering process. Now, for some people, that might drive them. That like, I have to finish, 80,000 words by this date. That could be really inspiring for them. But for me, that's actually like a block. So I had to kind of let go of the expectations of like when it would be finished and when it would be published, and just let myself be creative. And I'm so thankful that I was able to do that, because I do feel like the final product is much more reflective of like me and what I wanted to write, versus just like, I have to write this novel and then I'm going to go back and fix everything. I didn't have to do that. I mean, I had to do a lot of editing, obviously, but it wasn't like, all of it felt like me. All of it felt like what I wanted to say. And so most of the editing was just like, line item editing, like making sure the sentences made sense and that there weren't two periods and things like that.
Yeah.
So when you're starting out, I think you have to be flexible with yourself, and you have to be patient, and you have to be, or I would just turn that back around and say, I had to be patient with myself, and I had to be flexible with myself, and also get creative with the circumstances under which you're trying to write. So for some people, maybe having a daily writing practice where they're writing 15 minutes every day, even if it's gibberish, maybe that could be very helpful. But for me, it wasn't. So I think that writing is a great opportunity to learn about yourself and your patterns and your habits, and like the flow of your day. Like, what part of the day are you more creative? I found very quickly that I could not write in the evenings. Like, nope, like no way, no freaking how. It was only in the mornings, or it wasn't going to happen. And so I would need to like make sure to leave my house by like 9:00 if I wanted to get in, 4 or 5 hours of writing, because I knew that if I tried to leave later in the day, I wouldn't. And I knew if I tried to start writing later in the day, it just wasn't going to happen. So I would say, like, learn about yourself, sort of see all of this as a learning opportunity and an experiment. And if you do that, there's no way to fail. You can't fail if you approach writing as an experiment, as a practice. And so I think that for me, just like disconnecting writing from its outcomes was really important for me to be able to continue feeling creative in that process. I think for some people, goals can be, they have to have like this big goal to shoot at. And for me, it was like the opposite. I had to let go of the goals and just be like, how do I want to feel when I'm writing? What do I want to write about? What stories are inside me, like waiting to come out? And I just had to kind of find the right conditions to let them out. And then I think if you're in the writing process and you're thinking about publication, the one piece of advice I wish I understood, and it's not like I didn't hear this anywhere, but I think I didn't believe it, is that you have to have like a 6 to 9 months period of time before you launch. I gave myself 3 months and I was like, that's plenty of time. 3 months. Like I've always launched things in like a month. So 3 months is a lot. But getting people to actually read your arc and like be ready to leave reviews and have maybe some interviews lined up with like your local newspaper or have podcasts lined up. I really did not, I really underestimated how much work all of that would take, which is funny because like I said, I've been a small business owner for like 15 years. I've had multiple different small businesses. So I'm not going to lie. I kind of went into the marketing phase of this being like, I know what I'm doing. I've marketed all sorts of things. Oh my gosh. No, book marketing is like this whole other world. I feel like an alien. You know what I mean? Like I've just like been dropped onto this planet of like influencers and like these big book houses and podcasts and things like that. And so I think I really wish that I had given myself more time to give the out to more ARC readers. I think I had something like, I want to say I had like 50 ARC readers.
Wow.
And I think I got about maybe 10 or 12 reviews out of that, which is not a bad ratio, which is, if you've never done this before, that sounds awful. Like, oh, the book must have been terrible if you like only got 10 reviews out of it. But it's notoriously hard to get ARC readers to actually leave reviews.
Really?
I've read like that you should assume like 5%. 5% of your ARC readers will actually leave a review in like one place, right? Whereas what you actually need is you need 20 people leaving reviews across 4 different platforms or at least 2 different platforms. And what's really funny is like I have, I think 15 or 16 reviews on Storygraph and 4 on Amazon. I can't get anybody to leave me reviews on Amazon. And it's fine because I've discouraged people from shopping on Amazon. I've been pushing people towards like bookshop.org, and bookshop.org doesn't have a review. Like you can't leave reviews. But I'm like, hey, could you go back to Amazon, even though that's not where you bought it, and give me a review over there? Because it doesn't look great to only have 4 reviews, but it's like I have lots of reviews elsewhere. Just nobody's giving me them on Amazon, which is kind of funny. So I wish that I had maybe not just understood like the time needed, but also like I literally had a to-do list of like 200 things before my book launch, but it really should have been like 300. Like I should have lined up podcasts to be ready to be published when my book was ready, or like author interviews that were ready like the week my book came out. And instead I was like scrambling to do those things like maybe 2 weeks from publication. And that's because, again, I just didn't know the book marketing field because I've never marketed a book before, but also I don't like I never participated in like Bookstagram, you know what I mean? Or like I was not on, Storygraph or Goodreads or anything like that. Like I wasn't an active participant. So I kind of just didn't understand some of these things. And so I would say, give yourself more time, and also I would say try and front load more of your marketing so that it's ready like around launch time, which sounds like a very, like, obviously you would want to do that, right? But like I sent out, I don't know, probably 30 emails or something trying to get like a review in a newspaper. And getting a review in a newspaper is incredibly hard unless you like pay for a service for like somebody to review the book, and then maybe they can get it into like some newspapers. And I had like zero budget. So I was working on zero budget. So I was just emailing kind of like without really knowing if it was going to the right person, emailing these newspapers like, hey, I would like love a review. Here's, a review copy. And, when I was doing that, like maybe 3 to 4 weeks before my book was published, but there's this one review site where like they're happy to review it. And like most of the books that they get submitted are reviewed, but you have to submit it. I think it's like 3 to 6 months before publication.
Oh, wow.
And so I missed out on so many opportunities simply because I just wasn't ready at like, I wasn't thinking about that part of marketing 3 months beforehand. I was still really deep in like the formatting and, getting it out to all my ARC readers and things like that. And I wish that I had maybe given myself 6 months so that like the editing and stuff was on the the 1 to 3 months. And then like right at that 3 month shift, like really shift into like marketing mode, even though the book wasn't out yet. And I didn't understand how important that could be. And on that same note, like I said, maybe 5% is a good review rate for ARC readers, but there are authors that get a much higher rate than that if you can cultivate relationships in advance with those readers. And one of the ways that people do that is like by having a newsletter or by participating in Bookstagram, right? So like I created my Instagram account like maybe 6 weeks before the book came out, whereas like I probably should have created it a year before and
Wow.
really dived in. And I would have understood more about the process had I done that, but it like just wasn't on my radar. And so I would encourage people to like give yourself a lot more time than you think you need. And then, you know, really just like start a list of all the places that you want reviews and make sure you understand when you have to submit it by, because a lot of newspapers as well, they'll be like, you have to submit it, you know, at least 2 months or 3 months or even 6 months before publication if you want a chance for us to read it. So I wish that I had given myself more time. And then it's not like I hadn't done research. I had done tons of research. I just maybe hadn't happened upon some of the things like that I needed to know. And so definitely like do the research before that 6 months, right? Like go
Yeah.
into that 6 month launch period with this massive to-do list of all the places that you want to contact and all of the you know, author interviews that you want to do and podcasts that you want to contact and things like that. Don't start that process at 6 months or 3 months before your publication. So I do wish I'd known more, but as I said, I approach all of this as an experiment and as a learning experience. So I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. That's okay. Like I know it for next time. And I can kind of just let it like wash off me because that's okay. Like we are all learning and I'm not somebody who's been in this sphere, you know, for a really long time. So like, of course there's going to be things that I missed or didn't know that I didn't know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. The one thing we encourage our listeners to do in this podcast is to definitely leave reviews, because I think as readers, you give us the words when you write the book. We can give our words back to you in a review. As an author, speaking to the readers who do leave reviews for you, what kind of reviews catch your eye when you're like, oh, that's meaningful. That really means something for me as an author to read that specifically from a reader. What kind of things do you look for that encourage you as an author from a reader?
I think anything that is like comes with some emotion behind it. So like I love when people tell me that like the anxious main character resonates with them. Like, oh, this reminds me so much of myself when I was in college, or so much of myself when I was younger, or me now. And it helps me like kind of process some of those emotions that I'm having because you know, you don't necessarily see characters written like this or from own voices perspectives. And so like that's been really helpful to me. But by the same token, like I have a couple of like 2 and 3-star reviews that I love just as much because they're still coming from that place of emotional honesty. So like one of them, I think I have 1 or 2 2-star reviews, and one of them says like, this is a slow book. Like it's about like this person's daily life. And I expected maybe more to happen. But like I found like the internal monologue really interesting. And it's like, yeah, this person's 100% right. Like the 2-star is not reflective of the writing. It's reflective of that they were going in and expecting something that was more like a romance novel, right? Like, and this is not a romance novel. It's very romantic, very, very sensual, very sexy, but it's not a traditional romance novel. And so if you go in, you know, with your expectations about what kind of book you're reading, sometimes it's off. But everything that she said was accurate, right? So like I cherish that 2-star review as much as I cherish the 5-star reviews that are like, oh, this resonates so much with me because she was just being honest about her experience. And that review gives readers, like potential readers, as much information about the book as the 5-star reviews. And so I think for me, like they're pretty much any review I'm really happy to see, especially if there's like words in it, right? Like if I just got a 2-star review and it didn't say anything, I'd probably be kind of like upset, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they took the time to like give information to the next reader, that's so thoughtful. I love that. So I think that just like any reviews are amazing. And actually, since I've become an author, I've gone back into Goodreads and reviewed like 50 more books, right? Because like exactly what you're saying, like I didn't realize kind of how important it was for authors, especially independent authors, to have book reviews and have like a breadth of book reviews, right? Like you don't want all 5-star reviews because then that looks either like gamed or,
Yeah, exactly.
maybe it's part of some trendy thing. Like you want that full range of reviews. And so I used to like not provide a review if it was like going to be a 3-star. And now I'm like, oh no, I do, but then I should also write something and explain why this didn't work for me because that could be exactly why it works for someone else. And I think that's the unique thing about books is that we are not all reading the same book. We are reading
Right.
with our own experiences and traumas and joys and histories. And so I think book reviews are like such a gift that we give to other people to help them decide if this is going to be, a worthwhile endeavor for them because there are so many books these days. And so anytime that you have somebody who's willing to, take that 5 minutes and write a review, I'm just so thankful for that.
Yeah, I get a little nervous when I go and see a wall of 5-star reviews for something, anything, like a book, a product, a service, and everything is a glowing review. It's like nobody, like this met every need for every person perfectly. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that seems a little odd. So I do like a real heartfelt, well-written review. I think even if it is a lower star review, it balances everything out and it makes it like, okay, this isn't a game, this is real, right?
Yeah.
And these are real people. So yeah, I like that too. I agree with you.
I did get a review recently that literally just said, eat, pray, love, but neurodivergent and in Scotland. And that was the whole review. I was like, okay, I'll take it. Like that,
Okay.
it's not this like, emotional, catharsis that sometimes we hope for in like book reviews. But I was like, that was this person's experience with this. And that's kind of fun that that's how they see it. This is a story of exploration and finding yourself. And she is neurodivergent and she's in Scotland. So like this rings true too, but it made me laugh because you do kind of get used to looking for like these long flowery reviews that are like sort of explaining lots of things. But those short reviews can be really helpful too.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Luna. We talked a little about the writing process, the book. Let's talk a little bit more about Luna, the writer, the author. Tell me more about this person that I'm talking to right now. I want to know more about you for the readers because I want them to connect with you as a reader as well. A little bit more about your approach to life, kind of a little bit more of your story that you can share with us that kind of brought you to today as a writer.
I kind of had a very roundabout journey to becoming a writer. I never really had fiction writing on like my bucket list. I was never like, oh, I want to write the great American novel, or I was never like, I really want to publish something like before I die. That was really never on my radar. I've always done quite a bit of nonfiction writing. I wrote after grad school, articles about like, post-war social systems and all sorts of different things. And then I wrote a lot when I worked in federal policy. I worked on climate change policy. So I wrote lots of technical reports and things like that. Oh. And then when I became a small business owner, I started writing about just like issues in small business, how to use social media, how to weave sustainability into your business, et cetera. And I always found that to be this wonderful outlet. I love writing. I love, putting things down and getting things out of my head, because for me, writing is like a process of taking what's here and often like what's not even conscious, and then like having to metabolize it as it goes onto the page. And so I find writing to be this very like healing process, because I can take really challenging subjects and like work through them as I'm writing about them. And I find that incredibly helpful. And then about 5 years ago, I started writing about my experiences as a child being raised in a restrictive religious environment in a cult. And that was really hard, but also really healing and really cathartic in some ways, and really helped me kind of put me on a trajectory of like research and healing. And I don't think that I would have been able to write fiction without having taken that step of writing like incredibly personal essays, because the leap for me from like nonfiction to fiction was too great. So for me, there was like this in between of like these personal essays where I was very vulnerable and very open and admitting like, I don't know what I don't know what I'm doing, but like, here's how I'm trying. Here's like how I'm trying to get through all of this. And here's how I'm trying to metabolize and understand these things. And then a few years ago, my oldest, she's 14 now, was like, hey, I would like to have like a writing session at a coffee shop once a week to like write my novel. And I was like, cool. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to write some fiction like while they're doing this. I'm just going to see it as like this writing opportunity.
Wow.
And I planned out like this very, very basic arc of like what I thought would happen. And I just started writing. And I was so surprised by how easy it was to write this story. I thought, I guess I like imagined it to be like this really torturous process. But for me, the writing actually was the easy part. All the other stuff has been hard for me. I'm not going to lie. The marketing, the like trying to get your book into the library, trying to get your book reviewed, trying to get your book in front of people, like that's been very challenging. But the writing part was actually pretty easy for me. And so after a couple of sessions, I was like, oh, I actually have this book forming and I'm really pleased with it. And I started publishing it episodically on Kindle Vella and actually like made a decent amount of money having it on Kindle Vella for like 6 months. I think I made like $300 or something, like,
wow.
Which is more than a lot of people make with their first book, like ever. And so I was like, cool, this is like amazing. And it was also affirming because it was like people were actually reading it and saying, that they liked it. And so for me as like a kind of what at the time I thought of myself as like a non-writer, having that immediate affirmation and validation was like very cool and probably helped propel me like into writing more. And then after about 6 months, I was like, okay, I actually have a novel that's like really coming together. And it's like, I don't know, maybe halfway or 2/3 done at that point. So like, what am I going to do with this? Because like, this was not, my intention was not to like write a novel and publish it. But now I have this story and I really like this story. And I do feel like this is exactly the kind of book that I love to read. So what am I going to do with this now? And so then that was like months of soul searching of like, do I just want to like print it one copy for me? Like, is that the kind of thing that I need? Or do I want to like try and get a book deal and have this published? Or do I just want to publish it on my own and like see how that goes? And I actually, when I finished the book, did like 6 months of querying where I looked for like agents and also publishing houses that might be interested in the book. And I very quickly was which was like shot down by every agent because it had been partially published on Kindle Vella. So even though I had pulled it off of Kindle Vella like before it was complete, they did not care. They were like, we will not touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Really?
And I actually got some really lovely feedback. Like, we really like your writing. We really like your story. We really like your vibes. But this is a no, like, come back to us with your next manuscript. And then I got some actual offers of publication from publication houses, which are usually not quite so reticent to publish something that's appeared partially or fully online. Because like with the agent has to say, like, I can sell this, right? But the publication house is like, we just have to print it and market it. So I think that there's like a little more risk tolerance there for things that have already been published or like partially published online, like through Wattpad or something like that. And I ended up not accepting any of the offers because the contracts were just like not as clear as I needed them to be. And then the answers like to questioning that clarity were like not what I needed them to be. Like, it just was like not going to work for me individually because I wanted to know like the timelines and I wanted to know what my responsibilities were and what their responsibilities were and like what they were going to do to market the book and what platforms it was going to be available on. And none of these things were in the contract. And that's not unusual. I've did a ton of research on Writer Beware, which is an amazing resource if you for writers who are thinking about like signing a contract with either an agent or a publishing house. And I basically just wrote up this list from all these different Writer Beware articles that I'd read, like, here are all the things that I need to check and like 20 things that I need to make sure in the contract. And then the 2 contracts I ended up reading, I think I got 3 offers, but only 2 actual contracts. The 2 contracts that I read were missing like 5 to 10 like significant pieces that I had been looking for. And so I was like, okay, so now I'm at this point where, like, again, what do I value here? What am I going for here? What is my purpose? Is my purpose to just say that I got published? I'm using air quotes if anybody's listening to this. And like, is this a pride thing that like I can say that I had a publishing house back me? In that case, I should just say yes and deal with the consequences of not having this clarity. But that doesn't work for me. Like I like that clarity of like knowing. My husband's a lawyer, and like when we do like home improvement projects, like I'm the one that either writes or reviews the contract, and I have 20 years now of like contract writing experience as a non-lawyer. So like it's important to me to understand like the purpose of the contract is not to like to have like a gotcha for someone. It's to outline the rights and responsibilities of each party. And that's how you avoid problems, is by being very clear up front. Here's who's responsible for each of these things. Here's who pays for each of these things. Here's when you will get paid from your royalties, etc. So I decided that it was more important to me to have control, not necessarily even control over the timeline, but clarity on the timeline, than to say like I got published with a publishing house. And so I decided at that point, I took a really long time to think about it, like months. I was like, I am not in any rush. They can wait for me. Like I just need to make a decision based on what feels right for me. And when it all shook out, I was like, I would rather do this on my own and sell fewer books, but not be part of not be at someone else's whim of like the editing and the cover and how they promote me. And like, I honestly don't want to go do a 40 bookstore book signing tour. Like that doesn't resonate with me. So then if they haven't outlined like what they're expecting of me, it's really hard for me to say yes, because like I don't want to commit to something that I don't know what I'm committing to. Right. So in the end, I decided to self-publish, and still at that point had to continually assess like, what are my goals here? Is my goal to sell X number of books? Is my goal to make Y amount of money? Or is my goal simply to learn about the publishing process, get my book out there, see how it resonates with people, and see if I'm right, that there's value to this story and to my writing. Like it's been a kind of a constant process of me saying like, reviewing my goals. What are my goals here? Like, what is my goal? So if I see somebody else who has like a popular self-published novel and it looks like they're selling hand over fist, you've got the opportunity to either say, you could be jealous, right? Or you can say, okay, what do they actually do to get to that point? They probably had a newsletter for years. They probably are paying for some marketing or reviews. They are probably working on this full time, which I can't because I have like other work I have to do. Maybe this is their third book, so they've been through this before. There's all these things, and I think we can take the opportunity to say, if we're jealous of someone, or if we're like feeling like dejected because our thing is not successful under whatever terms we're defining it as, okay, well, how did that person get there? And are we willing to take those same exact steps? And if you've taken all the same steps and you're not as successful, like, okay, well, there's something to, review there. But usually we're not that successful because we're not willing to put that amount of time in or that amount of money in. And I think as long as we're honest with ourselves about that, that can be a really good, learning experience. And so, I see all of this as a little bit of an experiment. And I'm really happy with the reception of the book. I think any first-time debut fiction self-published author would say like they wish they'd sold more books. Obviously, I wish I'd sold more books. But I'm pleased with the response, and it's in libraries now through Hoopla and Libby, and as well as some physical libraries. And that was really important to me. That was like one of my goalposts was I really wanted people to be able to access it, for free and like on vacation, because that's how I consume books. I love finding a new book on like that's just available right now on Libby. You know what I mean? Like I've read so many books that way, or listened to so many audiobooks that way, and that was really important to me. So, it's been a learning process. And if I think, like going back to my advice for writers, if you see this as a purely commercial enterprise, it's probably going to be a really hard, long slog. Right. But if you see this as a practice, as an experiment, as a learning experience, then you can find joy and learning and growth throughout this whole process, even when it's hard. And I mean, I think that's kind of a life lesson too, right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's switch over to the readers who are going to buy a copy of Meet Me at the Ruins. Can you kind of give us some context to what we're going to experience as a reader and set up the story for us a little bit, maybe a little background, so that we know. Yeah, there it is. We know what's going to happen. There we go.
This is, I can,
yeah.
you can see it.
That's amazing.
Meet Me at the Ruins. Meet Me at the Ruins is a story about a college student who goes to study abroad in Edinburgh, Scotland in the early 2000s. So it's a little old, a little while ago. And the story is really about the main character, Margo, and her life and her struggle to kind of get a handle on some of the anxieties that prevent her from really having deep relationships and deep friendships. But it's also about her trying to figure out her place in the world. Like, what is her purpose? Like, so many college students go through this, sort of metaphysical change in those 4 years. Like, who am I? What is my goal in life? Like, what do I want out of life? But also, how do I want to approach my relationships and friendships? And what kind of lover am I? What kind of friend am I? And so this is a story that takes place over like a 6 or 7 month period. And it's about Margo, but it's also about Margo's friends and how she builds and sometimes destroys friendships and relationships. And it's also a bit of a love letter to the city of Edinburgh. So I actually studied there in the early 2000s and just absolutely fell in love with the city. And so Edinburgh is like kind of just this, beautiful background to this story. And you get to explore Edinburgh a little bit as well as these characters. This book is a little funny because it's not in one specific genre. So if you are a genre reader, like you only read romance or you only read mystery or something, that probably might not work for you. But there's some elements of like college coming of age, new adult, it's romantic, but it's not true romance. And then it like sort of veers into like contemporary fiction, possibly like lit fic. And with lit fic, literary fiction, one of the main things is that like there's no real like, denouement and like conclusion. Like it's not necessarily plot driven. And this is not a particularly plot driven book. I mean, to the extent that she has this exit date where she goes home, that's kind of a plot point, but it's not really like, oh, you're leading up to this and then there's this, huge thing and then this conclusion. Yeah. And so it's cross genre, which in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I've written the kind of book that I want to read, right? Like I recently read the Language of Flowers, which is similarly cross-genre. Like it's like sort of literary fiction, but it's like there's a love story and it's also, kind of about the foster care system and it's about poverty. And it's like about all these different things all kind of woven together in the story. And I'm not like a romance reader, but I love stories that are about relationships, right? And so this is, that kind of sort of like interwoven multi-topic, kind of messy and vulnerable story that I personally am drawn to. So, that's what came through.
I want to jump back to, you talked about the origin of writing the book and that you were going to be out there with one of your kids as they were on their journey of writing. Did they ever pursue anything in their own journey of writing while you actually ended up being an author at the same time? Did they actually pursue it?
They actually published several novellas on Kindle Vella. So not like they did not want to take the step to actually publish, but they made I want to say $70 on their Kindle Vellas, while Kindle Vella existed, because it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. And so I think that was really fun for them that they could write and make money, when people clicked on it or read it, they made, a couple cents, and that was really fun for them. And I've encouraged them to take some of these shorter novellas and put them together into a novel, or even just publish the novellas, and they've declined. So they are still interested in writing, but they're kind of in a fallow phase where they're not as inspired to write right now. They do a lot more art right now. So I think that's one of the great things that we can give our kids is that space to be even though I know that you could be an amazing writer, now at 14, like you get to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah.
You get to decide when, if ever, you pursue that. So even though like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I want them to write more. Like, I think it'd be really cool. I have to be like, no, art's great. Work on art right now. So that's
Okay.
kind of a parenting challenge.
There you go. Well, it's nice for them as well to be inspired by you as a parent to watch your journey and go, well, you did it. So this was originally my idea for you to come with me as I work on my project. But now watching you succeed as a writer then gives them some motivation maybe to do whatever it is, write a book, do their art, right? But they get to see that you're creative. So maybe I can be creative. I like that. It's good.
Yeah. And I think that there's, for them, there's been a lesson too, where the other day I was talking to my oldest kid and they do, all this art that they could sell, that they could make like lots of money on. And I said something like, do you want to do this so that you can, make some money? And they were like, I don't need any money right now. I was like, that's amazing that like, that they have the presence of mind to be like, that's not my priority. Like my priority is just the creation of art. I think that's so cool. And I don't think that that's not how we were raised. Like we were raised like, if you're going to be an artist, it has to be like 100% in the direction of, commercial success, like to take care of yourself. But one time I asked my kids, this was a few years ago, I was like, what do you think your life will look like when you're 40? And my oldest said, I'm a part-time writer and a part-time barista. And I do art on the side and I have like a bunch of animals. And I was like, that's so interesting to me, because if you had asked me when I was like 12, what my life looked like at 40, it would be all about like my success, right? Like my work success, because like that's how we were raised, or at least that's how I was raised. And it would be like about the things I've achieved. And the fact that my 12-year-old was imagining in the future having like multiple like gig jobs and that's what would make them happy was so cool, because like that's what I've figured out for myself at like, it took me maybe till I was like 37 to figure out that like I'm actually much happier if I'm writing and doing photography, like, and teaching online and I don't know, like painting. But it took me a really long time to figure that out. So the fact that my kid at 12 has this figured out, that like this is how their brain works and this is the kind of thing that makes them happy, I was like, we make mistakes all the time as a parent, but like I've definitely done something right here, that they're not imagining their future as just like how much money they're making or how big their house is. And they can foresee a future where they get to choose the things that they want to do that make them happy. And I thought that was so cool.
I love it. Let's, before we wrap up, Luna, I want to just help the reader as well to understand a little bit more about Margo, your character. What's one thing that's maybe not super obvious about Margo and who she is that you think is really important that the reader needs to know about Margo that's going to help them maybe connect with her early on in the story? Something just about her character, how she sees the world, that's super important to you that this message gets out through Margo's character.
Yeah, I think I would say that even if it's not like obvious right at the beginning, Margo's fairly lost. So one of the really interesting pieces of feedback that I've had is from some people, Margo's anxiety and her inner monologue resonates with them and reminds them of themselves. Other people, I would say a minority of people, but other people have said that Margo seems to them to be really prickly and kind of selfish. And so I find that really, really interesting, that like some people see her as this very in a very compassionate way, like, oh, I understand what she's going through, and I was like that in college and I was struggling with these things. And other people see her in this really sort of more cold, objective light, where it's like, oh, she was rude to that person. Well, yes, she was rude to that person because all these things were going on in her brain and she wasn't like processing, what the other person maybe was talking to her about. And so I think that I don't begrudge people that interpretation of her. That is part of who she is that she can be prickly or not pay attention to other people because of all the things that are happening in her brain. But I would say that I think if you go in with this idea that like she is looking for herself and looking to find her place in the world, I think you see it's easier to have a little bit of more compassion for that prickliness. And I recently read another book called Leaving the Station, where the main character can come off as a bit prickly. And I was thinking about this quite a bit. And I was like, this is really interesting because now I'm seeing it from the other side, where I absolutely have compassion for her anxiety and the challenges that she's going through. And also she seems really rude sometimes. And so that was really interesting. But I come in with that same compassion of saying, like, she seems lost, right? Like she's in a position where she's looking for something and she hasn't found it yet. And I think when we think about life like that and we look at people around us with that, like, it can be easier to be compassionate about the actions we're seeing, and not like rush to judgment so much.
Luna, tell us about your website before we head out the door. I want to send people there. There's a lot of great stuff. I love the reader's guide, by the way. I've been reading through that. It's excellent. It gives you just enough to make you go, wait, I want to get to that part in the story. So I like this. Tell us more about your website.
Yeah, so it's www.lunawestish.com. You can also just search Luna Westish and you'll find it. I have like little blog posts. I also have a page where you can listen to all the podcasts that I've been on over a lot of different topics. There's also a newsletter to sign up. Haven't actually sent out a newsletter yet, but if you'd like to sign up, my plan is to start sending one soon. And I'm also on socials, Luna Westish on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I'm most active on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account when you want to connect, shoot me a message or just say hi, and I'd love to connect there.
Well, Luna, you are fun to talk to. My gosh, I love having you on the show. My show is called Living the Next Chapter, Luna. It's kind of a built-in question in the name of the title of the show. So how are you, Luna, living your next chapter? What can we expect from you down the road?
I am currently working on the audiobook of Meet Me at the Ruins. So at some point there will be an audiobook, although it's taking me a lot longer than I had hoped. And I'm also working on my second novel, which is, as of right now, a romantic comedy set against the backdrop of leaving a cult. And that might change. I'm only like a few chapters in, but I'm having fun working on kind of a very different story for my second novel.
Interesting. That's a very interesting premise. Romantic comedy and a cult. Yeah.
Yes.
Those don't normally go together, those two things, but that's what you do. You love taking all these things and putting them together. I love it.
Exactly.
It's good. Luna, thank you so much for doing this. It's great to have you on the show and to talk through this. I can tell talking to you, A, you're passionate about what you do, and B, you love what you do. Like, it's just it just emanates from you. You're just like, this is what I love to talk about. This is what I love to do. And it shows. So keep doing it, because I think you found something really special, Luna. So I'm encouraging you and cheering you on. And I'd love for you to come back in the future as well. As new projects come out, come back, give us an update. We love to always reconnect with our guests on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here.
Excellent. Everybody, always go look at the show notes. You'll see all the information for Luna there. Click through. You heard how important it is to leave a review. Luna would love to get your thoughts as you read through and purchase Meet Me at the Ruins. Make sure that you also think of somebody else who's listening, that you, as you're listening to this, you're like, I know they would also love Luna's book. So make sure they know as well. And if they haven't purchased it yet, just buy an extra copy and send it to them. We'll sell multiple books just by that. All right. So let's do that to support our authors. Luna, again, thank you so much for making time to be on the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5. Kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.